We see Rodgers.
3rd and goal. Prescott stands in, delivers. It is intercepted in the end zone. Rudy Ford has a convoy. Rudy Ford with a huge play for Green Bay. First interception as a Packer, and it comes in the end zone at a big time.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. If you'd like to email the show, you can send a message to PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. If you'd like to text the show, you can send a text message to 865-658-5824. We got a special guest on the pod with us. You guys are probably listening to this either on Sunday evening or early Monday afternoon, the podcast version, but we are live on YouTube and Twitter. We're going to appreciate everybody hopping into the chat and making this a little bit more enjoyable. But who we have on the pod today with us is our buddy Jacob from Packernet Fantasy Podcast. Jacob, it's been a while, man. How you been?
I'm doing good, man. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's hot in Wisconsin. It's like 83 degrees right now and sunny. It's great.
That's awesome, dude. That's what's up. Yeah, just obviously hope everybody's having a great weekend and understanding what it is to what we're celebrating. You know, it's always weird to say Happy Memorial Day, you know, because there's really not much happy about it other than, the fact that so many great men and women were willing to sacrifice their lives for our freedom. We definitely appreciate that. And every veteran that you meet, Jacob will say, this day isn't about us. This day isn't about us. But, man, when you're remembering those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, I think it's important to just say, hey, thank you for your service, you know, anyone who's out there serving our country, you know, armed forces, all that type of stuff. So with that being said, man, we got a little bit of football going on, right? We got OTAs. I don't know how you feel about OTAs. A lot of people just sit around and bitch and moan and act like it doesn't matter and this and that. I love it, man. I love it. Football starts flying around the Don Hudson Center, Ray Nitschke Field. I get excited, man, because it tells me that summer's going to crank up, and the next thing you know, we're going to be easing right into football season. What's your take on OTAs, man? You get excited this time of year, or do you just kind of, it is what it is?
Man, after becoming more and more involved with the network, I'm excited for every little part. Like Ryan talks about, I hadn't played any video games, and the only time I ever had in my life is when I play Madden, and I do franchise mode or career mode. And I found for whatever reason, I got the bug in the off season. I bought a new Xbox. I didn't even know how to download. I didn't know you didn't have to buy games anymore. You download them. I'm a boomer. I called my brother, he helped me set it up, and I skipped through the whole season. I just wanted to do the off-season stuff. I started making trades, doing the pipeline scouting. I'm, looking at other prospects, and I really do almost enjoy the off-season. I shouldn't say that. I've learned to enjoy the off-season and take it for what it's worth, and to, I love summer, obviously. I love being outdoors, but it's nice to have these little tiny bits of football to keep you in touch with the team throughout the season. Now, one thing I will say, I would have loved to see all of our guys there, but it is nice. We had 83 out of 90 guys there for a voluntary OTA. I think that's a really, really great sign. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think that any of the big top 3 cornerbacks, other than Stokes, was there, but he was there obviously injured and kind of hobbling around. But, I would have liked to see Jair there. I would have liked to see Rasul there. But it's their summer too. And to get 83 out of 90, I think that's a win.
Yeah, I don't even know who wasn't there, to be honest with you, because for the best of my knowledge, I believe Bach was there. He wasn't on the field, but he was.
Bach was there. Preston, Gary, those guys were there, I believe. I know that Jair, Rasul, one funny one that Andy Herman brought up, which I thought was just really funny because he has not been to any voluntary OTAs, Jonathan Garvin. For whatever reason, that guy thinks I'm above this. I made the team last year, bro. I don't got to even worry about it.
Kidding me? I don't need this, dude. I played 4 snaps. Why the heck do I need OTAs? Come on. Love it. All right, let's do this, man. Let's just jump into some of the notes that kind of caught my eye coming out of OTAs, and this was live during practice, and some of this stuff we've kind of hit on in the past on the pod, guys. I know me and Ryan, we talked about a few things, but I want to get Jacob's take and just kind of, it's funny. You get these updates coming in real time. You even do a podcast about them, and then 2 or 3 days later, you go, man, I really didn't look at it from that angle. It's amazing how, thought-provoking it can be when you have just a couple of days, 24, 48 hours to kind of sit and dwell on something. But Rob Domofsky said on Twitter, cornerback Eric Stokes said, that he had surgery on his knee and foot. They were done at the same time after his November injury. He had a Liz Frank injury and had a plate inserted in his foot. You guys have heard Ryan talk about that on his pod. He said he finally started running a couple weeks ago and believes he'll get his speed back. When you hear, I believe I'll get my speed back, I don't know how you feel, Jacob, but that kind of leads me to believe he's probably not going to be ready for week one. I mean, when you still don't know for sure if you're going to get your speed back, I have a hard time believing someone's thinking, yeah, week one will be good. We all know that Eric Stokes, that's the strength of his game. Crazy athletic score, crazy physical ability, all the athletic traits. Some people would just say he's lacking in the the natural instincts, I guess, football IQ, that type of thing. When it comes to Eric Stokes, the thing that sticks out to me is the way the board sits. I don't want to turn away from the microphone too much, but the way it kind of sits when it comes to the corner is Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Shamar Jean-Charles, and then I've got Carrington Valentine, outside of the red line. They're not going to cut him. They're going to want that rookie contract, I believe, unless he just absolutely craps the bed. So if Eric Stokes does start on PUP at the bare minimum, Carrington Valentine steps right into that role. Do you see anything different when it comes to the cornerback room? I know we've talked about Keyshawn Nixon possibly playing slot, which we'll hit on here in a minute, but are you concerned about Eric Stokes week one, man?
I am, but I'm not as concerned as I was a few weeks ago, because at that point, like, I remember Ryan touched on it, that they were speaking about him like they were about DeMar Hamlin, kind of like they were like, oh, it's just nice to see him moving and like
Right.
breathing. And it's like, dude, what's wrong with him? And I think he was in a wheelchair for a minute. And then from what I gathered, I listened to a couple podcasts today and a couple of YouTube summaries trying to really get a good grasp of what happened on the OTAs. They said that they saw Stokes with a lot more movement than they had seen him in weeks prior, because I guess he'd been around, or people had been around him. And they said that even at one point they saw Stokes backpedaling. So, I mean, that's more encouraging than, again, what we've heard in the last couple of weeks. I'm a little nervous, but I like the depth we have at cornerback. Obviously, Rasul's not a superstar. Jair, I think, is. And then you got a couple of guys like Nixon. I'm just really excited. You've heard some of the quotes of this dude coming out of camp and out of interviews lately about the return game and just how he just doesn't seem worried about anything. He's just ready to go out and ball. And I really, really like that mentality about him. And it's great that he's getting reps. The plus side of those guys not being there is guys like Nixon and who was the other one? Thomas, or who am I thinking of? The other backup cornerback that hasn't got a lot of time, but apparently he was running as like quarterback too. Hold on, I'll find it. 2 seconds here.
Wasn't Keandre Thomas, was it?
Keandre Thomas, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I've got 3 below the red line right now that are kind of noteworthy. I wouldn't be surprised if all of them made it, although you're not going to carry that many corners. But I'm really excited about Keyshawn Nixon, man. That dude's a ball player, and it's nice to see him kind of getting his opportunities, whether it's an OTA or whatever. I hope they move forward with that plan that Matt LaFleur talked about, and playing him in the slot. That's the other thing too. If for some reason we do hit an injury bug, Darnell Savage played the slot. So that is someone that could roll in the slot, especially with all the safety additions as we're kind of scattershotting to find the best 5 DBs to put out there in that nickel 2-4-5 that we play so much. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds, man. Let's move on to the next tweet, which actually came in from Andy Herman. He said, Van Ness with a would-be unblocked sack off a bootleg. He comes at you fast, and with his size, you really can't throw over him. He's an intimidating dude. That's something that I think a lot of people don't understand about the pass rush. And one of the reasons why I would like to see him on the interior during those nickel rush situations is because when you've got a big frame like that, when you've got that wingspan, man, throwing lanes are everything, especially when you play a shorter quarterback. We've seen it time and time again. That's one way that defenses are really, starting to play the RPO game, which we've seen last year, most specifically against Detroit, where we had the ball, batted into the air and intercepted there inside the 5 with Aaron trying to squeeze in an RPO pass. Yep. These guys are learning, man, clog up the throwing lanes, and it goes back to the old days of the 3-step drops and the old West Coast offense where you throw one of those quick hots. And with Lucas Van Ness, man, that's one of the reasons why, when you got an athletic profile like he does, they'll choose rawness over someone who might have a little bit better tape, as far as more consistently at the college game or even more playing time. But are you excited about Van Ness, man? Have you come around to the pick? I haven't really got to talk to you about it since the draft, I don't believe. I personally liked the pick. I thought it made a lot of sense. He was the name that popped up early for us when we were doing our off-season exercises as far as, hey, who makes the most sense here? It's a tier 1 position of importance. You got Rashawn Gary, who's questionable for week 1. I think it makes all the sense in the world with Preston Smith kind of, entering the back half of his, more than back half of his career.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Van Ness?
Yeah, I really do think it was a great pick. Much like you, I was all on the Van Ness train with most of my mock drafts. And then for whatever reason, I read some stupid article. When sometimes you read one stat and for whatever reason that stat will stick in your brain. I read that he's never started a game. And for like 3 weeks, I was like, he's and then I heard an interview with, I believe it was the head coach or maybe the defensive line coach at Iowa. And that was just the way that that's how they structure their team. It's how they reward their seniors. A lot of really good, programs do that. And then when you look at the snap counts, I was like, oh man, I'm an idiot. And then you look at the guy's natural born ability with his freak athletic stature. And then you add in the fact, if I'm not mistaken, he's only played football for like a very short time. He's basically a hockey player that adapted into playing that. And he's just kind of still learning how to use his body pretty much. And they said that he has a better skill set out of the gate than Rashawn Gary did. So if that's the case, and he's 6'5" and he's 270 and he looks like he could, do you know what he ran? He ran, I think, a sub, 4.6.
I think he ran a 4.540.
That's okay. So and I think Andy Herman said specifically on this play something to the fact of, he's unblocked, but they had no idea. Like when you leave a guy unblocked, you expect that you maybe have just a slight bit of advantage because he's unblocked. He's like, what's happening? You know what I mean? He shot that gap, he said, so quick that even though obviously it's a dummy practice and you're not going to hit that quarterback, but if that's a live scenario, I think Andy Herman was like, that quarterback's dead. Or at least he's throwing the ball to God knows where just to get it out of his hands. And that's very – and, well, we'll get into it. But I think that our edge – we could have a sneaky deep edge rotation this year with guys that if they take a step up, which we'll talk about, guys that need to. But that could be – I'm excited about our defense. I know we say that a lot around this time of year each year, but I am.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things I hit on last week. I laughed when I said it. You kind of giggled when you said it. I looked at the board back here, and I looked at the edge room, and I'm like, dude, we're stacked at edge. Like, and it's not to say we've got a bunch of studs ready to start, but it's like that backup, the backup position. If you're just going to carry 5 edge defenders, man, it's going to get interesting. You're going to have some guys, and that may bite Jonathan Garvin in the rear end not coming to OTAs.
That's what I'm saying.
So
that guy's very comfortable with his job, I guess. But, man.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, man. All right, let's move on to the next one, man. This next one's about our boy Keyshawn Nixon. I'm like I said, I'm jacked to see him in the slot. But Andy Herman says Keyshawn Nixon with gorgeous coverage on Watson down the sideline. Watson tried to go over him, and it didn't work. Let me say it again. Christian Watson, the giant that is Christian Watson, tried to go over Keyshawn Nixon. It didn't work. Incomplete. Nixon gets praise from the sideline. Love with a gorgeous throw to the corner of the end zone to Dylan out of the backfield, but dropped off the hands. So Dylan taking a little stray in that tweet. We didn't plan on reading that, but I'm going to read the whole tweet. So that's kind of been one of the knocks on AJ, unfortunately. But, so when it comes to Nixon, man, I mean, right there you're seeing him go up against our number 1 wide receiver. When you look at Keyshawn Nixon, you don't think of him as saying, okay, yeah, he could play a boundary corner position and cover deep down the sideline. But whether it was in the slot or not, obviously Andy Herman didn't go into that much detail. But you got Christian Watson trying to go up over him and Nixon making the play. The dude's just a freaking football player, man. The person that I think of when I see him play, there's 2 people that come to mind. And please don't get me wrong, guys.
Can I say it and see if I got it?
Yeah, go
He's
ahead.
got that dog like Woodson.
Oh,
I wouldn't give him.
I was getting ready to say, I'm not saying he's a Hall of Fame
Woodson,
caliber player, but when you talk about someone who just has a knack for finding the football, someone who's he's not the fastest guy on the field, but he's always taking the first step because it's like he doesn't have to think long as other players. There's just something about him. He's a football player. When you put him in the return,
is that what you're going to say? Were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say Woodson and Micah Hyde. Those are the 2 that come to mind. because Micah Hyde kind of had that same thing. It's like, man, he doesn't look crazy athletic. And Woodson, in my opinion, didn't look crazy athletic by the time he got to Green Bay, or at least in the latter years in Green Bay. But he was just always a half a step before the play. And that's kind of what you seen with Keyshawn. I was watching the game earlier here, and I seen him flash a couple times in the Patriots game. And it's like, man, I don't know how I overlooked it so much last year, but kudos to the coaching staff if they are going to come through and do what they're talking about and playing him in the slot over Savage. And that's the thing, too. That may force us. It kind of yin and yang, man. If we play him in the slot, does that force us to start Savage at safety? And we've seen how bad Savage played at safety last year. Let's hope he could turn it around. Jacob, you and I were saying this at this very point last year. You never turned it around. But at the same time, man, you got to get your best five out there in the nickel and in the DB room when it comes to that. So I don't know, man. I'm very, very interested to see what Keyshawn Nixon does in camp and some of the camp reports, because right now, man, he seems to be one of those guys that's stepping up as a leader. I wouldn't be surprised if he's voted a team captain this year. I really, really wouldn't. So how do you feel about Key, man? You excited about it?
I am. And like you said, he just seems like he's that kind of player. What was the quote when they were asking about the stupid new kick return rule? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Or he's like, I don't really give a he
said it's irrelevant.
They kick it, I'm gonna return it, and like it's great.
They basically said, what do you think of the new rule where you can fair catch outside of the end zone and get it at the 25? He said it's irrelevant. I've never fair caught anything, is what he said. I believe. So he's bringing it out, man. And dude, that strikes fear into opponents. You remember, dude? It seemed like it was yesterday when the Bears had Hester. Every time you kicked the ball to him, it was like, God, here we go. And I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting to see what Key can do here. We've got somebody here in the chat. We got John in the chat said Packers still need a vet to back up Kenny Clark. I think that's a fair opinion there, John. We're going to talk a little bit here in a minute about Devontae Wyatt when we get into second-year players who need to step up. But yeah, that defensive line room, I'm going to take it a step further, John. I personally believe that Kenny Clark has not played up to his full potential, man. I feel like for the amount of cap hit that he's eaten up, you want more out of that guy. He cut weight last year. Jacob, you remember this time last year we were talking about
his pass rush ability.
Yeah, he's going to be coming in and he's going to dominate in pass rush, and it never came together. I think Kenny is an awesome dude. I think he's a hard worker. I think he's still young. I just want to see him come out and be a dominant interior defensive lineman like we know he can. That's a big thing for me. So moving on to the next OTA note here. This comes in from Andy Herman as well. And he said, Jaden Reed, rookie wide receiver Jaden Reed with a nice release and catch over the middle. He made a move and looked awesome. Then he forgot the ball and fumbled clean. Defense picks up the fumble. Interesting coaching point from Matt LaFleur. If there's a fumble in practice, he doesn't want his offensive players going after it. So I guess he's trying to prevent injury there. I don't know, man. When you play scared, that's when you get hurt. But I'm also a redneck with a podcast. I don't coach NFL football, so take that with a grain of salt. But Jaden Reed, I'm all on the hype train, Jacob. On draft night, we're doing the draft broadcast. I've talked about this on the pod over and over and over. It surprised me when they traded back once. I said, all right, they like somebody here that nobody else is on. And then they traded back again. Right. When they traded back the second time, my mind changed to they're going for Jalen Hyatt, because this feels like Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy, they refused to pick Eddie Lacy twice, if you remember. And then they finally like, okay, this just makes sense. We got to get him. I was expecting Jalen Hyatt. When they said Jaden Reed, I was like, how did I miss this? Like, what am I missing? I go back, watch the tape, and it's the one note that I had to put in the spreadsheet this year, Jacob, for the draft next year is make sure you look 1 year removed, because he had an unbelievable 2021 season, and you could tell the quarterback play was much, much better that season, and that's what the coaching staff's seen. I'm actually doing a two-episode podcast where it's going to be Chalk Talk Jaden Reed. I've got 17 plays from that 2021 season, dude. I was trying to cut them down. I cut it down from 23 to 17. I'm like, I'm showing them all, the heck with it. We'll do 2 episodes. But Jaden Reed, like I said, Eddie Herman talking about cleaning up that ball control. Now's the time to fumble. Now's the time to identify, hey, look, he's got ball protection deficiency there. So How do you feel about Jaden?
So if I go back to my draft reaction, I was as lost. What do you call? I was lost as a fart in a fan factory.
Yeah.
That's where I was. I was like, who is this guy? I'm looking at my list. I'm looking at you, looking at yours. I'm just, dumbfounded. But again, you take a step back, you eat a slice of humble pie and realize I have no idea what these guys in the front office have been doing. And that's a good point, Clayton, when you said, go ahead and make a note so that next year we have to look at the year prior, because that's a great thing. So let's add that with the RAS crazy score. You have to be over a certain age, but not quite over a certain age, if that doesn't matter. And then there's the big school, but not really a big school because there's Creighton, Washington. So basically you got to look at everybody. And it's just, okay. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's, I don't think I've ever felt in my adult life, because literally we've only had 2 quarterbacks and a very set cast seemingly going into each year. This is such an up in the air coin flip at almost every, I shouldn't say every position, but a lot of different positions. I mean, even, you look at guys like, like we talked about, guys like Garvin, these tweener guys that either could make the team or completely be lost to football for the rest of their lives. And it's really cool to see who could be that guy. I mean, I'm looking at dudes like if Sean Ryan, we talked about how he was taking some snaps at center randomly. And maybe that's just a stab at trying to save a third round pick from being cut. I mean, Goody, I'm sure he seems like he's very reluctant to get rid of his guys. Which I love it. I want him to have a little more time and show what they can do. But you want to move on to the next position, or what do you think?
Yeah, just to kind of wrap up Jaden Reed there, what I was talking about, I actually went back to my notes from the Chalk Talk segments I'm going to be doing. 2021 first team All-American, 59 receptions, 1,026 yards, 10 touchdowns. Jacob, he averaged 17.4 yards per catch. This dude, I couldn't tell you how many times I wrote on a note with a specific play, 9 yards after the catch, 14 yards after the catch, 7 yards or 8 yards after contact. This dude's running through arm tackles. If he had come out in the draft last year, he would have been a first-round pick. There's no doubt in my mind. But obviously he wasn't available or wasn't able to. But so.
And the last thing that slipped my mind when you were talking about it is the way, again, Herman made it sound like is that it wasn't like he bobbled the catch or nothing. He literally he was looking to make the next guy miss. He thought he had the catch, and that's just one of those little things you got to shore up. But that shows that he's not even thinking about the catch. He's thinking about the guy he's going to make miss next, which if you're a yak guy that's what we love, dude. That's Randall Cobb incarnate.
I think out of the 17 plays, on 5 different plays, I wrote aggressive eyes. And what I meant by that was the second he made the catch, he was already looking to make somebody miss.
And that's what Herman said, is he literally was like, grabbed it and just started like dinosauring around corners.
And that's, again, I'm not trying to draw crazy, unrealistic comparisons. I'm not saying that he's Tyreek Hill, but that's how Tyreek Hill plays. Yes, he's quick. Yes, he's fast twitch. Yes, he's world-class top-end speed. But you see the second that ball touches his hands, he's already identifying who am I going to juke out of their freaking jock right now. And that's what I want to see in Jaden Reed for sure. John in the chat here says, I thought they would have gotten Branch. John, I'll tell you this. If they had drafted Brian Branch with that first-round pick, I would have done backflips, and Ryan would have kicked me off the stream so quick. So, I'm with you on that. I think Branch is going to be a good player, but I also understand the concern because there were a lot of people that I trust within the draft community that were saying they see him more as a corner than a safety. So,
could you see a scenario where, if you remember this time again last year, we were talking about Kyle Hamilton and why he would probably fall in that draft because of the RAS wasn't there, the bad pro day was there. And then what did he end up being last year? If I'm not mistaken, was he not the number 1 safety in all of pro football?
My draft board last year, and I'm now compiling a master set to where I have everybody's grade to where in the database we'll be able to compare past prospect grades to current prospect grades. That's my goal for next year. And last year, number 1, I had Aiden Hutchinson, phenomenal rookie season. Number 2 was Kyle Hamilton, and everybody laughed at me. He fell all the way to 14, and he did, Jacob. You're right. He graded out, according to PFF, the top safety, not the top rookie safety, not the top rookie DB, the top safety in the entire National Football League. So sometimes you gotta, and his RAS just to be clear, it was fairly solid. it was just that wonky 40. He ran that sideways 40 and his 40-yard dash was bad. And everybody's like, oh, come on, dude. Like, really? You can see the speed on tape. And some people have just got football speed, I don't know. It's a good fit for him in Baltimore too, I think. So
great fit, yeah.
All right, let's move on to the last – go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's just I'm going to pick at Ryan real quick because I was listening to his I can't remember what the recent – it was in the last 2 episodes, but Ryan said something to the fact of Kyle Hamilton will have to have some negative regression next year because, he was the number 1 safety. But I will argue with Ryan, he did that as a rookie with – coming into year 2, arguably you'd say you'd take the biggest jump as your NFL career. You know what I'm saying? So for him, I would say that maybe lends to believe that he could be a repeat offender for being one of the best safeties in the league if he's doing it as an absolute rookie with no real veteran knowledge. I mean, they say that the game goes so fast from the time that you're a college player to the NFL. And if he can already grasp that as a rookie, then imagine what he can do with Charles Woodson type years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm of the opinion that I kind of see positions a little bit different. Safety, I think, is one of those positions that, a quarterback will have a sophomore slump, right? Sometimes a wide receiver will have a sophomore slump. And the reason being is the defense is keying in on the things they did well. Now you have to become multidimensional. Now you've got to read the defense a little bit quicker. Now you've got to be able to look off the safety as where your rookie season, you didn't have to do that. With safety, I feel like it's one of those positions. It's probably going to be a lesser amount of regression as far as potentially regressing. But at the same time, if he does regress this year, they've seen his ceiling now, and they're working back up to that ceiling. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in Kyle Hamilton if he stays healthy. It's like anybody else in the league. It just hurts because being a Notre Dame fan,
that's right.
Knowing he was within striking distance to fix the safety room, and you guys know I feel like that free safety center field spot is a tier 2 position of importance. We already had a good edge defender. We already felt like we had a decent interior defensive line, especially with Devontae White. If you were to trade up with that other first round pick and maybe bundle something else together and get Kyle Hamilton, your safety room would be in a lot better shape. But again, man, if he'd have come out and flopped Jacob, we wouldn't even be talking about him right now, right? No. So it's hindsight's 2020 for sure. Yep. All right, let's do this, man. Let's move on to the next. Is there anything else you want to cover as far as OTA notes? Let me ask you that. Is there anything else that stands up? Because we're going to get into this next segment with the second-year players who need to step up. Anything else in OTAs that kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, just Quay apparently maybe had a little bit of a minor injury, it sounds like. He was off to the side. It looked like he was initially doing like some more solo-type drills, and then it was shown that he was clearly limping at one point, as well as Grant DeBose, however he says his name, which I still, we have a really deep, I really love it, that we have a lot of competition. This guy that they just signed from, was it Hammond or Hamlin or whatever? Jakaris or Jakari, I don't, he scored like 10 touchdowns last year, had like 2,700 yards in 2 seasons. So, I mean, we got a lot of guys. I think he's 6'3", runs a 4.5. So I'm just glad we got a bunch of dudes that are there. Mm-hmm. It's good to see that we had, again, 83 out of 90 guys. People seem like they're having fun, lots of energy, high spirits. So I love it.
Yeah, the locker room's wide open, man. This is an opportunity for these young guys to mold this locker room into what they want. You guys know I was a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. Still am. There's going to be a day he comes back. The number's retired, and he goes down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest Packer of all time. But he controlled that locker room. That locker room went as he went. It went as he and Bakhtiari went. They controlled the humor. They controlled everything about it. That's not abnormal. That doesn't make them bad guys. Now that big, I don't want to say big personality, but that icon of a player is gone. That locker room's there for the taking. And the person that I'm telling you that really comes to mind for me that's stepping up is Keyshawn Nixon. He's one of those guys that he seems like he's going to be a vocal leader. Jair Alexander, I think he'll be another. Devondre Campbell, man, I just love his quiet approach and how he approaches the game. I think you're going to see that dude ball out this year, Jacob. I think he's going to be healthy, and I think Devondre Campbell's out to prove something. I love his freaking attitude. He's just got this attitude on social media and all the way across the board. Listen, if I don't agree with you, I don't care. This is how I feel, and if you don't like it, unfollow me. Dude, I love that. I respect that because every person is their own individual person. if Bill Walsh quote, I got it right here. I was actually taking notes earlier on a Michael Lombardi book. He said, if we're all thinking alike, then no one is thinking. And we live in a society where it's let's
Yes.
make sure everybody's thinking the same exact thing. Nothing great ever gets done. And that's how you get pushed into a corner. And I don't know, man. It's just there's no innovation that ever came from everyone thinking the same way, man.
Absolutely.
It's, a multitude of opinions that in the locker room, having a locker room that's open and honest with each other. That's what I'm kind of talking about. I don't think they had that last year. And I think this year, now it's just going to come down to another Bill Walsh quote where he said, I've got a ton of them here, man. I just happen to open my phone up. Champions act like champions before they're champions. And Keyshawn Nixon's attitude right now, it kind of feels like that. Jair Alexander is going to compete with everyone. Rashawn Gary's one of those dudes. He's going to work your butt off the field.
Yes.
I don't know, man. I'm fired up for this season. This young class, it's going to be awesome, dude. And what you said about the wide receiver room is so true, man. Another one that I'm excited about is Tay Wicks.
I was going to say, yes.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he had two deep passes, right? That he OTA.
They said that he was showing that he quietly was showing like very, very impressive flashes. And that's kind of what a lot of guys that scouted him said. It's like, you kind of saw him. I think Ryan said that something like they couldn't quite tell if he wanted to be a football player. And honestly, at that point of his life, I don't blame him, dude, because at that point, he probably still had in his mind or realistically other options where it's like, do I want to put everything I have into the basket of being a pro football player? I think he said he wanted to maybe be more of a, maybe he liked basketball more or something like that along those lines, where I think that the scouts, that was his biggest knock, was something like, we don't quite know if this guy loves football.
Gotcha.
And if you're going to be one of those guys, I think that what we've seen so far and what I've kind of read between the tea leaves is that once the decision was made, yep, this is my career choice now. It sounds like he's all in and that he's taking it very seriously. And I have to believe that the Packers would do their due diligence before they brought a guy in just on a flyer. Would they get him in was it the 4th or the 5th?
I don't even remember. It was later though.
I thought it was maybe 5th. That's a valuable pick still. And I don't think the Packers are going to throw that pick away on a guy they don't believe is ready to dedicate his life to football. And yeah, it sounded like that from what, again, Andy Herman and a few other guys, Boz on YouTube, if you ever check him out, he's a great follow. He was talking about how they just seemed like, they were having some chemistry early. And I don't know, dude. I'm just super pumped because there's so many young, I think we have the youngest team on the offensive weaponry. Like if you look at the running backs, the tight ends, the wide receivers, our average age is what, like 24 or like 23.5 or something.
Yeah.
We've never as a Green Bay Packer Nation had an off season where we're going into a season where it's, I don't want to say coin flip, but it's such an unbelievable array of unproven talent, but also uncapped ceiling talent. We don't know what these guys could be. Even like Quay Walker, I love the emotion that guy. Obviously, he needs to learn how to bottle it up and not punch trainers and stuff like that. That's one thing he didn't punch him, but you know what I'm saying. He's got to learn how to harness.
You kidding me? He tried to murder him, Jacob. That's what everybody on Twitter said.
Yes, he tried to murder him.
I was like, the way people were responding, I'm like, bro, y'all make it sound like he hit him with the damn Stone Cold Stunner or something. Like, what are you talking about?
Or that they're a bunch of ballerinas. It's like they're professional football players out there that they're going to be aggressive. Like, sorry guys.
Crack me up, man.
Anyways.
Yeah, they were ready to. Yeah, it was. They need to kick him out of the game. He should never be able to play again. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? Don't visit Tennessee. You're not gonna like it down here. I promise you, man. Like I won't even get into it. But anyway,
Can I ask you one more question before we get into the most improved or needed to improve? Do you think, being a small town, and that's been our kind of knock on Green Bay, is we're a small town, one headlight town. Do you think that the announcement that now we are hosting the NFL draft gives a little bit of any sort of, vibe boost, more of an ego boost to our team, our team members, the younger guys, maybe that Green Bay is becoming more of I hate to say like a flashy team, because I don't want us to be that. I don't want us to be the Cowboys. I don't want us to be a big city team. I love the fact that we are what I want. And I almost guarantee I will go on record saying right now, our draft, I bet you will be low key one of the best drafts ever, because I guarantee you we're going to outperform what they did in Kansas City Because I know people that never. Ryan Schlipp's talking about going to the draft, guys. Ryan Schlipp
Yeah, I was
would not leave his front yard
Let's go
to go to a game. If it was in if it was in his neighbor's house, Ryan Schlipp would not go to his yard. Okay, so I'm just saying it's clearly bringing people out. I'm excited. I've already gotten 17 texts from people that I have not talked to in years that are like, who's driving? Where are we going? Where are we going to stay? You know, so, and that's great for the team. I love what the front office has done. We've gotten a lot of crap, but if you look at what Murphy and obviously Gutekunst and before that Thompson, what they quietly have been doing in that city has been amazing, and it's cool. It's really, really cool. And people that have talked all this stuff about our front office you guys need to really you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know it from a business side, a player side, an economy side, a social networking side. And as far as like just the city of Green Bay is so thankful for those guys. Like the people that live there are so thankful for bringing that commerce to that city. I mean, anyways, we'll get off that.
No, to answer your question, it had an opportunity to do that very thing. But unfortunately, we've got a bunch of freaking knuckleheads in the local media up there that want to make every possible say. So you're going to get me on a rant here, and this is what you do. You always gas me up. So they think that what's important to them trumps anything and everything that's ever happened to the Green Bay Packers.
We don't have enough 5-star Michelin rated steakhouses that they can wine and dine at.
And what cracks me up is they're there. Like
they are actually there.
We had one guy in the media the other day bashing. He was absolutely bashing Mark Murphy and making fun of the jokes he was making. He made the same jokes and he was mocking his voice and this and that. I'm like, and then he goes on to basically say in the same podcast that he couldn't afford to pay a vet bill and he had to make payments on it. And I'm going, so you're saying Little Green Bay isn't good enough, right, for the draft, and it's not good enough for you? And like Ryan says, they want to go rub shoulders with big executives and act like they're further along than they. Jacob, what they are, you've seen these people. They're in the club carrying around the same freaking $8 drink, and it's warm. They've been carrying around for 3 hours because they can't afford another one, but they want to act like something they're not. If you're not that person, who cares, dude? Just be you. And if people don't accept you, the hell with them, right? That's the way life should be. But when you get to the freaking point where all you do is tear down any and everything good that happens to an organization that you're supposed to support, that literally provide you your job. He was sitting there mocking Mark Murphy, and I've seen him in the locker room over and over and over, and you ought to see him cower down, this little tiny man who's standing behind players going, oh, yeah, and then goes on a podcast and bashes the crap out of them. Mark Murphy led the NFL in interceptions one season as a safety. He played in the NFL. If I understand correctly, he's got a law degree. He was the top guy at Northwestern University, worked his way into this role, he was personally mentored, from what I understand, 1 to 3 years. It was at least 1 year. It might have been as long as 3 years, by Bob Harlan. If you guys don't know who Bob Harlan is, he's the reason Lambeau is where it is today. He's the reason that the atrium even got created, and he cast the vision for Lambeau Field being this 365-day, year-round destination to continue to churn money for the organization. But you've got these idiots that are in the media, and more specifically locally, and me and Ryman on this rant the other day, and that's all they care about is me. I. How can I try to make someone else look stupid? How can I tear them down to make myself look more important, like I understand what the organization needs more than they do? If you knew more than them, you would be further along in life, you freaking moron. It just cracks me up, dude. I would love to sit down face-to-face with these people and record it and just have a football conversation and just embarrass the absolute crap out of them, whether it's X's and O's, salary cap. Heck, we could talk business models. We can run a 40-yard dash, whatever you want to do, just to embarrass them, because you can tell that, I don't know. The best way to put it, they've never built a monument for critics, right? It doesn't happen. And it just drives me crazy that Green Bay, we've wanted something like this for so long. And now we've got an opportunity to showcase what the city is, to showcase what the fan base is. Like, I think it might have been Dakota or someone else, which Dakota's in the chat. Appreciate you tuning in. Someone in the chat, or someone on Packernet After Dark called in the other night, and he said the very thing. He was like, dude, they're gonna see just how friendly Packer fans are and how inviting Packer fans are and the hospitality. Dude, the first time that I went to Lambeau Field, Jacob, and I'm gonna end this rant, I go up there not knowing what to expect. I had just become a Packer fan. I'm like, I got to see what this Lambeau Field thing is, and I fell in love. We pulled up and parked in someone's yard. This was in 2003. I paid them to park in their front yard. And the guy said, hey, listen, man, if you guys need to use the restroom, if you're tailgating, the door's unlocked. Feel free to use it. If you park here, our house is open to you. I was like, what is this place? Like this,
right?
It's just an unbelievable place. But again, those guys that get paid decent money to cover the team and be in and around Lambeau Field on a daily basis don't appreciate it. And familiarity breeds contempt. That's exactly what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's move on. Second-year players. I'm fired up, man. I hate it when people.
No, and I would. All right. Last thing I'll say is just, can you just imagine the gift from the Lord or whoever you pray to that your job is that? Can you imagine, Clay? I could imagine me and you going to work. You clock in and you get to be there. You get to see everything. I mean, we've stood outside those gates. I got to stand on that field once when I did the tour, and I got chills. I mean, I just standing there, just being there. Just not even nothing going on. Imagine having to, that's your office, 9 to 5. And for whatever reason, you find that your job is to make it go negative 24/7. I mean, I just can't, I feel bad for you, man. I really do.
Yep.
I feel bad for you.
Yep. It's ego, dude. You know, As cliche as it sounds, ego has no amigo, you know, it's just, you get to that freaking point.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Exactly correct. So I don't know, man. But yeah, no, I'll tell you this right now. If I ever got the call, hey man, we want you to come up here and work for the Packers, bro. Mandy already knows we're packing our stuff.
He's got to go.
We will still have this house, but we will be purchasing something in Green Bay, and I will be hiring in multiple people to run our daily businesses, and I will be in Green Bay chasing a dream, bro. It's that simple. So, and just a little heads up, we actually are looking at some property in Green Bay that we just found. So that might be right around the corner. So we'll see what happens there. I'm already Mandy. It's funny. She kind of approached me too, and she was like, what if we bought this property and did 3 tiny houses on it and leased them out for game day weekends, and then it's there for your podcast network. It's there for we can rent it out when we're never there. There's just a ton of things you can do. But again, that's how we think. These other guys are sitting in Lambeau Field complaining.
I lived in a tiny house in Nashville for a year. Amazing. It's just me and my dog, but I'm telling you, people will pay big money for that. That's dope. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. That's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. So we got Dakota in the chat. He said, I made a live episode. I don't know what that means, Dakota. I don't know if you shared ours or
you're OnlyFans or
you might be selling feet pics. I don't know what's going on. But we appreciate you, man. If that was something to support us, Dakota, you're the man. I'll tell you this, bro. Continue to call in on Packernet After Dark because you are the man.
Is he the Tennessee guy?
What's that?
Is Dakota the Tennessee guy?
Yeah.
Oh, I love him.
We got John in the chat says, can't wait. I only live 45 minutes away. See, that's the other thing too, John. I'm looking at people that live. If I lived, and this is just me personally, if I lived within 2 hours, I'd be there every weekend, bro. I'm just telling you, that's just me. And I understand it. People got responsibility and finances and all that comes into play. But I don't think I would ever get tired of it, man. I just, I love it. I absolutely love it. So let's do this, Jacob. Let's move on to second-year players who need to step up. All right. This about turned into a Packernet After Dark. We got to get back to football.
Yeah, I know, right?
But I love it, man. It all has a time and place for sure. Number one, these aren't necessarily in order. I just went from the offensive depth chart through the positions, and I found 4 players that I feel like it's really, really important for them to step up in year 2. Okay. Oh, let me do this. Let me share this real quick. I promised people that I would do this if I can get it to pull up here. If you guys do want to support the show, I'm going to put this up here for just a few minutes. People have been asking, hey, how do I support the show? This is an easy way for us to do it on Restream. That's the Venmo that's attached to Packers Total Access. So if you want to, you can scan the QR code and you can donate 10 cents, whatever you want to do. It don't matter to me. But anyway, people have been asking. I'm going to leave it up for just a second. It always feels awkward promoting that stuff. But when you get multiple people asking, it's like I don't want to knock them out of the opportunity to support us for sure. So number one on my list, like I said, not necessarily in order of importance, Jacob, but just kind of going offense to defense. Romeo Doubs. A lot of people talk about Romeo Doubs as if he's a solid number 2 receiver. I don't see Romeo that way. I don't. Not to say that he couldn't be, but that's just kind of his PFF grade was a 62.6. We know he had some drop issues. I feel like he cleaned that up. Watching his Patriots game, he actually had a fumble there in the first quarter, things like that. Fairly common for a rookie wide receiver. But PFF grade was 62.6. He ranked 123rd in the entire NFL. So you tally that out, that's basically a number 4 wide receiver. And that's comparing apples to apples, receivers to receivers across the league. Okay, so if he was a solid number 4 last year, let's see if we can work him up to being a solid number 3. I'm not talking about him coming out and having just astronomical numbers and a PFF grade of 80 plus. We're just simply talking about let's get better year to year. People forget that Romeo Doubs was a later round pick, and I did check that for you just a second ago. Tay Wicks was a 5th round pick, Jacob. I forgot to mention that. So
Romeo 4th?
What's that?
Romeo was a 4th, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So when it comes to Romeo, if he can just improve, man, maybe crack into that top 100. And again, PFF guys, it's not the tell all end all. I personally find it when I watch the tape, and I do watch every play 3 times. Every play from last season, I've watched at least 3 times. Some cases more than that. I tend to lean towards the PFF grades are pretty accurate as far as grading out how a player plays. Right. So that's just kind of how it plays out for me. Now, if he increases to a number 3 receiver role and Jaden Reed does live up to the expectations of being a number 2, potentially a number 1, that wide receiver room is going to be in pretty good shape. What do you think about Romeo Doubs, Jacob, here in this second year campaign?
Man, I'm not exactly sure what I think.
Did you feel like he performed really well last year? Because I feel like the common thread, the vibe I got from Packer fans was like, "Oh no, Romeo Doubs is a stud," and I was going, "I think he's held his own as a rookie." But
I think he's a product of the how we can get on the media for being anti-hype. I think he's a product of the media going pro-hype. Just if you remember in the off-season workouts, the OTAs, the rookie mini camps, all that kind of stuff, they're like Dobbs, Dobby. They couldn't pronounce his name for like the first half of it. So,
yep.
And by the way, speaking of people that can't pronounce names, Enigbare, which I said, that's his name, guys. All right. So it's Dobbs, Enigbare. But so I am hopeful. I actually do think that I see Dobbs as a number 2. I do. Just because not necessarily that's what he's going to stay as, and he's cemented in that way, but coming into this year specifically, we got Watson, we got Dobbs. My sneaky pick, I'll pump the brakes on that for a minute, but my thought for Dobbs is that he's going to definitely be in that comfortable number 2 at least for the first 6 to 7, 8 weeks of the season. If Jaden Reed then starts kind of becoming more familiar with the system, if the coaches, obviously, if they just, the Packers are so hesitant to trust rookies. I think they definitely trusted him a lot more last year, which was great to see. Obviously, between Quay and Dobbs and Watson and Wyatt, I wish they would have done a little more with Wyatt. But I think Torrey is going to be my guy. As far as my guy that needs to step up. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of buzz around him for sure.
And Vrabel, the wide receiver coach, is that who it is? Yep. He said that, watch out for him. He's been here every day. He's been working, and he's looking very, very solid. I believe that he was one of the guys that I'm a sucker for 7th round wide receivers. I'm a sucker for, I was on the Jake Kumaro hype. I was on the, who was the guy that I loved?
Janice.
I love Janice too. The guy that fumbled the second he got the ball. Maybe? No, the guy last year, remember? Oh God. He caught the ball.
God.
And then he fumbled right away. You know what I'm saying, right? I can't.
Yeah, I can see him.
Yeah,
I want to say Geronimo Allison. Obviously, it's not.
No. Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts.
Yeah,
whatever.
We got to move on. Just go.
But I just really do. I believe I believe it's early season reps that he's going to get as that solid number 2. As then, I'm saying that Dobbs is going to get that number 2. I think Torrey, depending on injury, because we're really banking on the fact that Watson, Dobbs, and then now Reed are going to stay healthy. If any one of those guys has any sort of injury whatsoever, Torrey, I think, catapults immediately to number 2 or number 3. And the fact that he has been doing a lot of off-season workouts, that he's been doing a lot of stuff that the coaches really like, and the fact that, again, that Gutekunst is so hesitant to get rid of anybody that he's drafted, I think they want to try to keep this guy on the field as much as they can. So that's my guy. I do really think that Dobbs is going to have a better year than a lot of people. I think that I'm more pro Dobbs this year than a lot of people were last year going into the season. He had some drops. He had some fumbles. I do like his mentality, though, and I think that he's going to be growing. So
yeah,
I'm excited, dude. I think that right now I think it goes Watson 1, Dobbs 2, Green, Reed 3, Torrey 4, and then I don't know after that.
Gotcha. It wasn't Malik Taylor either, was it?
Nope, it was
God,
number
I'm
88.
trying.
Number 88. What's his name? He was on the practice squad on and off for 2 years, and I said, "This guy's great. He's so fast."
God, I know you.
Right.
Winfrey.
Juwan Winfrey.
There it is. Got it. Nailed it. All right. So in the chat here, John says Dobbs was so up and down last
season. Were you looking for that whole time?
Yeah, I was coming through everything. I had to go to 2021 because he didn't technically make the roster. He's on the practice squad.
No, he got lifted up like week 3, I think, or something.
You could tell this is the off season, man. I'll tell you what. John says Dobbs was so up and down last season. I really like Torrey, and it's so true, man. There was times that Dobbs. I mean, you've seen a couple of catches he made here in the Patriots game after the fumble. It was exactly that, up and down. He fumbles on the opening drive or the second drive, I believe. And then it was like later on in the game, he made that back shoulder catch from Aaron, and then made another diving catch in the end zone there in the back corner. So it was very up and down. But yeah, I think Dobbs has a lot of potential. The next player that I feel like it's important to have a good second year. He had a great rookie season, in my opinion. He's arguably the best rookie we had last year, and that was Zach Tom. He graded out as a 68.3. You could see it all over tape, too. Held his own at whatever position they put him at. There were some positions he was a little stronger than others. You guys know this was Ryan Schlip's main guy coming out of that draft. This was one of the guys that he liked, and he was pounding the table for, and the Packers took him. And, man, you could just see it, Jacob. This guy, he has great spatial awareness. He didn't have the best technique, but he never got too far out over his pads. The dude was just a solid offensive lineman. 68.3, that grades him out as the 88th best offensive lineman. Okay, not guard, not tackle, not center.
Overall,
out of all offensive linemen in the entire NFL, he was 88th, which you guys do the math. 32 teams, 64. That puts him at a number 3 spot, which means he is a solid starting offensive lineman when you compare apples to apples across the league. Right now, some of you are saying, okay, well, are you going to start him over Elton? No. Are you going to start him over Yash? Probably not, because Yash is on that tender, and guys, money says everything. Same thing with Darnell Savage. If Yash is the starting right tackle, here's what I want to see Zach Tom do. I want to see a 3-way competition for the center position between Zach Tom, Elton Jenkins, and Josh Myers. And the reason I say that, let's do a little comparison here. Zach Tom, 68.3, 88th best offensive lineman. Josh Myers was a 60.4. So you're talking about a significant upgrade if you put Zach Tom in at center. Now, listen, I know it's not Madden. You don't just plug and play anyone anywhere. And the goal overall, Jacob, is you want as little movement as possible. What you don't want to happen is have one guy go down in a position and you've now got to move 3 offensive linemen around. You want it to be something where it's just one person moving around. Zach Tom in a backup role probably makes the most sense. Let's say the offensive line is left tackle Bach, left guard Elton Jenkins, center Josh Myers, right guard John Runyon, right tackle Yash, right? And you got Zach Tom backing it up. He can play all 5 positions. So if one person goes down, nobody else has to move other than that backup coming in. That's very important. However, if you say, all right, Zach Tom is going to be starting center, you upgrade significantly from a 68.3 or to a 68.3 from a 60.4. But if he goes down, or let's say not if he goes down, let's say Yash goes down, right? Now you got to move Zach Tom to right tackle. Now you got to bring Myers up to center. That's a lot more moving parts. But how do you feel about Zach Tom? Do you want to see him start? And talk me off the ledge here. Am I being a jerk when I talk about Josh Myers and feeling like he underperformed, or are you okay with the way Josh Myers looked on tape?
No, Josh Myers, I have no problem saying that I want him to compete for his job, and if he doesn't earn it, I have no problems. I've been on the fence with him. He's a giant center. I would expect him to have a lot more power. I think that when they did the initial starting lineup, it was Yash at left tackle, Royce at left guard, Myers center. running at right guard, and then Zach Tom at right tackle. And I don't mind that. I like Yash. I've always liked Yash. I love that size and that freakness. But with Tom, I mean, I love the fact that you could probably plug and play that guy anywhere. To me, Myers has been our biggest weak link in that group of five. And we've given him 2 solid years to really show what he has. And I haven't seen a lot of it. And I don't know if I'd be willing to let Elton go to center because of how good he could be at a guard or a tackle position. And it's kind of the same thing I think of as Tom. So it's like, I don't want to just waste, I'm not Mike Wall, so I don't really know a lot about anything as far as the offensive line goes, but I would be interested to hear what his take would be. I would think that obviously you put your priority is if he can play tackle, play him at tackle. If he can play guard, play him at guard. If he can play center, then you stick him at center. Now, maybe he would say that's different if the quality of the center that he plays is so much better than that he could play at guard, if that makes sense, So I don't know. And I'm not, again, a scout, and that'd be great if Mike could ever, if you get him on here again, just be like, where would you think, based on your evaluation of these guys, where they fit best? I'd love to hear that.
That's a great question. We'll do that next time we have him on. I kind of asked him about Myers, and he definitely said Myers took a step back. He felt
did.
And there was no hesitation in saying it, which made me kind of go, okay, it makes me feel a little bit better because, the last thing I want to do is be the only person out here going, this guy's underperforming. I don't ever want to come across as I understand football better than a player, a coach, a scout, the custodian that works in Lambeau Field. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't ever want to come across like that. It's just center, I think, is very important. When I had Coach on, we were on Chalk Talk. I brought up to him. I said, man, am I wrong thinking that center is becoming just as, if not more important than left tackle? And he said, I understand what you're saying, but we got to pump the brakes. That blind side is still the most important aspect of the offensive line. If you're Tua in Miami, right tackle is the most important aspect of that offensive line. A right-handed quarterback, it's left tackle. But he was like, I completely understand what you're saying with center. It is definitely the second most important position on the offensive line. So I think that's, one of the reasons why our offense might have taken a step back last year. One of many reasons. There's a number of things you could point to. The wide receivers led the league in drops. Aaron Rodgers had a broken thumb, banged up ribs. Offensive line, your starting left tackle, starting left guard wasn't right for the first third of the season, and your center underperformed. So there's a lot of things you could point to. But that center position, man, I mean, you look at it, Jacob, the two teams that were in the Super Bowl, right? The center for the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champs, was the guy that we all know we took Josh Myers over him in that draft. And he's one of, if not the best centers in the entire National Football League. And on the other side, with the Philadelphia Eagles, you had Jason Kelce, arguably the best center in the game. It just shows you how important it is. Something else both those teams had, solid tight end play. It's just something to think about. So Zach Tom, I think if he takes another step forward and possibly takes over at center or left guard and move Elton back to his original position of center that we drafted him, I think that could be absolutely huge. So let's move on to Devontae White. He's another player that I feel like that could be huge or needs to step up in their second year. Devontae White had a really good rookie season. A lot of people don't know it. He had, when people said, oh, but he didn't hardly play any, it's true, but he still played over 200 snaps. So it's not a small sample size. It's just he should have been in the lineup more often. His PFF grade came to a 69.9. Jacob, he was the 36th highest graded interior defensive lineman in the entire NFL, 36. What does that mean? He is one of, if not the best, number 2 interior defensive linemen in the game. The majority of the time, defenses are matching 11 personnel across the board. It is hands down the offensive personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, meaning there's 3 wide receivers. That triggers your nickel package in the Packers system. And in most cases, a nickel package consists of 2 edge defenders, 2 interior defensive linemen, 2 inside linebackers, 5 DBs. He graded out as top tier number 2 defensive lineman, that second interior defensive lineman. Why did he not get more snaps? That's the big question. Jaden Reed ate up a lot of those snaps. Is there something there we didn't see? Was there some kind of disciplinary, action going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about? I don't know. But I do know this. I'm expecting Devontae White to eat up all of those reps alongside Kenny Clark this year. And, Kenny Clark, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. We kind of let off with it. I'm just going to mention it. 66.4 PFF grade. Guys, he is not performing like a $20 million interior defensive lineman. Now, Jaden Reed, the guy that Devontae Wyatt will most likely replace, a 61.9 last year. So Devontae Wyatt graded out better than Kenny Clark and Jaden Reed. You get Wyatt in the lineup more often, then I think you're going to see a big improvement there in the run defense. So what do you think about Wyatt, man?
Yeah, I just wish I saw more. And that's one of those weird things where we were seemingly more willing to play rookies last year, but for whatever reason, and what was it? John talked about how we need to get still need to get a vet to back up Kenny Clark. I just kind of disagree, because now we got that quote unquote vet. He's not a rookie. He's not quite a vet, but we lost Dean, and I thank you for your service, but not going to miss you, man. So he was just a guy. And I think that did Dean get more snaps than Devontae last year? Do you know that? Do you have that on a quick click?
I'll see if I can pull it up. You keep talking. I'll pull it up.
If you swap that right there, I mean, if you just give him that additional maybe snaps per game, or if you just now, because I don't know, would we have maybe Jonathan Ford? Other than that, there's not a lot of guys that are going to be stealing snaps from Wyatt this year, in theory. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I mean, we did see snapshots. I remember Sam Holman showed a couple clips, some post-game stuff where you watch some of the the snap movement, the quickness that guy gets off the line, and then the violent hands that sometimes he has where he can just randomly chuck dudes out of the way. So I am very excited to see him take a big leap. Can I tell you one of my guys? I only had two. I know you have four.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So my guy.
Oh, let me say this. I'm sorry. I did look it up. Dean Lowry had 400. He had 482 snaps, so he had roughly twice as much as Devontae Wyatt.
That right there, boom.
Nope.
I would expect that he will get 400 snaps easily.
Nope.
Go ahead. My other guy, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead with your guy.
Okay, so Kingsley Enagbare. I touched on the name, not just the name to me, guys. He flashed to me, and he was one of those guys. I believe he was a 5th round guy that fell to us in that draft. I think that was correct. And he was one of those dudes that people were like, I think he was like a 3rd round projection. So again, one of those guys that maybe we capitalize on. And I did see flashes. I really, really enjoy, again, our depth at edge between Garvin, him. Do we still have, Ladarius Hamilton? Is he still in the mix? God, I can't remember. But anyways, we got a bunch of dudes, and they're obviously, I don't think Gary's going to be ready to go. I'd be shocked. I'd say like week 4 earliest, maybe, or 5 or 6 or whatever they were saying. But again, Preston getting up there in age, he seems to have that weird thing where he has an off year and a great year. And I don't know exactly which part of that cycle we're on this year. So that being said, man, I hope that Enagbare maybe takes Van Ness under his wing. We got a couple really good young, physical freaks that are just chomping at the bit to get there. And touching back on Kenny Clark, I mean, what is he? He's still like 26, isn't he? Like he's crazy young.
Still young. 26, 27, something like that.
I just really wish that guy could figure out how to unleash the beast, because it's just been very underwhelming. Yeah. Hollins, John just talked about Hollins again. I forgot completely about Hollins, who was starting to show signs of being another great goodie offseason pick. So
yeah,
I think they're going to try to keep him around us too. So what do we think? You think they're going to keep 5 edge?
Edge, last year, if we follow the blueprint from last year, we had 5 that we kept. So that means what I've got is Rashawn Gary, if he's ready week 1, Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness, JJ Enagbare, Kobe Wooden, which they're saying Kobe Wooden has put on a little bit of weight.
Edge.
Yeah, he might be playing defensive end now, because I think they've got him at like 283, 285. So if that's the case and he does slide to the interior, that might knock Jonathan Ford off the roster at defensive line with 6 there. Right. So you got Hollins, Wilson, Hamilton, and Garvin, which we know Garvin is too cool for school right now. So
I forgot about Wilson. That's right.
But yeah, when you talked about Kingsley, they say he wants to go by JJ. I don't know why they don't change his name then in all the databases. But anyway, PFF grade was a 61.4. He did have 465 snaps. Guys, 61.4, yeah, it's not great, but that's a late round pick. Like, you're getting some good production. And there were several games, overall defensive grade against the Jets, 90.5. Overall defensive grade against Tennessee, 80.8. There were some gems in there. Don't get me wrong. There was a 28.8 against New England. There was a 38.1 against Buffalo. But that's what you expect from a rookie up and down. But again, that Jets game, a 90 pass rush grade was hands down his best. And I think the thing that he was most consistent with was his tackling ability. And it's hilarious because when we seen him coming out of college, Jacob, we were like, you know what? Yeah, it's going to be rough having him in the run fit, but he should be a good pass rusher. And lo and behold, his run defense really graded out pretty well. So, yeah, funny how that works.
90 coverage grade almost too.
Don't even get me started.
There you go.
All right, let me move on to my last guy here as we just cracked the hour mark here. So this flew by, dude. I'm glad we did it. This is fun. Quay Walker, man, we have got to see some improvement. You guys, you see it right down here. I don't know if you can see it, if I can do this right there. I got his autographed jersey. Dude, I love everything about the dude. I love his attitude. I love his aggressiveness. When he tackles, when he gets to the ball, he gets there angry. And I love that type of football player. He's a guy who's got all the physical traits in the world. PFF grade 51.9. I had people that were trying to convince me that no, PFF is way off base. Look at the tackles. Yes, he had a lot of tackles. There were people that were trying to explain to me on a read option that he didn't do anything wrong when he was chasing the running back across the field while the quarterback was running up the opposite sideline. I'm going, how can you tell me that's not an issue, bro? Like there's some disconnect there. But that's the thing. When you draft someone for RAS, an athletic profile, you're drafting because there's a ton of potential athletically. Now, can he put it together? There was times, Jacob, that I seen it and was like, this dude's going to be a beast, and I still believe that. But 51.9, he graded out as the 133rd best inside linebacker. Now, keep this in mind. In a nickel defense, there's only 2 inside linebackers, right? So that means in the top 64, right? The top 64 means your starting quality. He was twice as bad as that. He would literally be a 4th string inside linebacker if you strictly went off the PFF grade alone. I personally seen that on tape. There was times that I seen the flash like that dude can be special, but he's just got to put it together. Now, let's go back to that draft night. When the Packers took him, every one of us went, who? I went downstairs to Manny, and I'm like, she's like, who be draft? I said, Quay Walker. He literally said, the country singer? I'm like, yeah, they drafted the country singer, man. But she was saying, like, it's Clay Walker, like the same name. No, Quay Walker. And she looked at me like, who's Quay Walker? I've never heard that. None of us know who he is. I guess he just got here from outer space, and he just pops up on the scene, and now he's the best linebacker in the draft. I don't understand. But I was on board when I seen the athletic profile, like, okay, this is definitely a goody pick. I got to see a big jump from him, man. And again, what I just told you, Jacob, what I seen on tape, he was lost in the run fit, absolutely lost. His run grade on PFF, 34.9. Run defense. His tackle grade, 63.5. You put those two together, and that's how you're one of the worst run defenses in the league, along with Kenny Clark underperforming in the run game as well. That's what I'm saying, man. People love to bash PFF, but when you put on the tape and you look at the overall statistics and you go to the PFF grade, more times than not, the PFF grade lines up perfectly with it. I think they're doing a good job over there. And again, it's not the tell-all, end-all, but what do you think about Quay, man? I'm not saying we're giving up on him. I think this year he's going to bounce back big time. I think you'll see a PFF grade in the 60s at least, and I think you'll see someone who's a little more prepared. The emotional stuff doesn't bother me, dude. It don't. I want someone who actually cares. First of all, let me say this. I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's not forget that the official touched him first.
Yeah.
That
and
stuff.
Plus, I believe the trainer did too.
Yeah. That's what it was. The official, the trainer and then the official. But you're right. It was the trainer. Like, listen, you don't want the players to touch the trainers. Tell the freaking trainers not to touch the players. It's like umpires in baseball. You guys know about baseball. When umps try to overshadow the game and make it about them, dude, like, And I'm not talking about Little League baseball where you got people, the stands are clearing and drunk uncles are fist fighting an old, back home, the umpires in our town were coal miners, dude. I'm not kidding you. They would come right in with coal dust on their face, put the mask on and say, play ball. It was I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these umps that you can just tell they want to make it about them. You know who it sounds a lot like, Jacob? These local media guys who were just talking about that. Same little man thing. But Quay Walker, dude, what do you think? You think you're going to see an improvement? Am I being too harsh? Looking back on last year, how did you feel about Quay Walker? And you do not have to agree with me, obviously. What do you think?
No, I love the guy's mentality, and I really do. He needs, when you say that you're not really bothered by the emotional stuff, I'm not bothered by it, but he does need to harness it. You need to understand how to completely. People forget that you're a 6'5", 250, runs a 4.4, and he's 21 years old. He's 22 years old.
Right.
If you gave me that body and that speed at 22 years old, my God, it would be.
I'd be in prison.
I would be in prison. I'd probably break out of prison and then do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are an actual super freak of a human being, and with that great responsibility comes. Or with that great power comes great responsibility, and he's learning, and he's going to learn how to hopefully hone the mental part of his game, because if he can hone the mental part, the physical traits are there. We've talked about that. That's why they drafted him. Now, if I'm going forward as Gutekunst in my draft, maybe I look at a guy like him and I say, man, he does have all the physical traits in the world, but maybe we do need to put a little more in the fact that he can diagnose plays. He can dissect offenses pre-snap, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to just rely on his physical traits to react and go chase them. I think that's probably what separates the guys that are good from being great. Like we talked about Kyle Hamilton. Maybe his physical traits aren't there, but if he can see certain things pre-snap before they develop so that he can get his body in position to overcome some of the physical traits that he's lacking, I think that's probably. Yep. So if Quay can do that, if he can develop the mental game because he already knows the physical part is there, then I think he's going to be a freak. So he just has to hone his game. It's got to be a little more get zen, dude. Start doing some meditation or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I got you, dude.
Get into gardening, Quay. It helps.
The gardening.
Do it, man.
We're not talking about the devil's lettuce either. We're not talking about the
none of that.
That wacky backer. Now, the one thing you can say about Quay, a couple things. He's got all the physical traits in the world, and you could tell it means something to him. Yeah. When he was walking down that tunnel last year,
he cares,
and everybody was mocking him because it looked like he was about to cry. Bro, you could see all over his face regret. You could see that he let his team down. He let his coaches down. And he realized it, they took it as look at it. The haters were like, oh, look at him. He's like, why are they doing this to me? No, he was saying, why did I do that? Like, I can't believe
he's saying, why did I do this to myself? That's what he was saying.
Yep.
He didn't say, why are they doing this to me? You could see that was a man completely coming to grips with what he just did and realizing that I just hurt my team. I just hurt my fan base. I just hurt my family. I just hurt my reputation. And he's wearing it on his sleeve. Honestly, that doesn't bother me whatsoever, because as a person that's done stupid stuff in my life, and then the only reason sometimes that I've learned, wow, that was really dumb, is because it was so embarrassing when you look back at it. Sometimes you have to have the spotlight shined on you in your dumbest, most naked moment of being an imbecile, because you realize, well, I'm never going to do that again, because I just looked like an idiot. You know what I mean? So and literally he was on national television. Millions of people saw him at his worst moment. I think that if what we'll see now is whether or not his parents raised a man or if they raised a boy, because what he'll do now is he'll decide, I'm going to use that as fuel, or I'm going to use it as something that's an excuse. So,
yeah, I'm excited to see him turn it around. I believe he will. We're going to hit on a couple comments here, and then we're going to get out. We're way over, but, man, it's always a blast talking ball with you. We have King of the Hill, DJ Key. What up, DJ Key? He said, can we get D-Hop? And then the next comment comes in and shuts him down and says, no D-Hop, too expensive and injury prone.
Got to side with John on this one.
This is how I feel about D-Hop. Yes, there's been injury issues. D-Hop doesn't have a huge set of crazy physical skills. He's not going to take the top off of defense. The thing that D-Hop has is catch radius and strong hands. He creates just enough separation. He's a possession receiver. I think he's one of the greatest receivers to play the game. I really do. I think there was a time where he was arguably the best wide receiver in the game, him and Devontae Adams. Similar to, good route runners, don't have blazing speed, great hands, great catch radius, all those things. The thing about D-Hop, though, two things. Yes, he's stayed injured, but he also tested positive, right, for a banned substance, which means how that last good year he had, was that a clean year, And I try not to talk about this stuff on this pod because, some people disagree and say there's nothing wrong with the performance enhancers. It's not the steroids of the 70s and all that. I'm not a doctor. You can tell by my accent. I read at a third grade level, right? Speak English at a third grade level. So when it comes to D-Hop, I would say no. And the main reason is an old Bill Parcells philosophy, a line that he used. He would refer to D-Hop as a progress stopper. Yes, he may be better than the other receivers on the roster, but he's going to take reps away from these young guys. And again, what are we doing here, guys? We're doing kind of this reset, not a rebuild, but we're going, all right, let's back up a step. We got some really good pieces in place. Let's see if this guy can step up, that guy can step up. You're building a roster with cash over cap. You're getting your cash over cap cleaned up in the next 3 years. You got all these young receivers on these rookie deals, right? And you're going to be able to really make a splash as early as next year or the year after, whether it's free agency or being more aggressive in building the roster. D-Hop just doesn't fit into that any at all for me. Now, for you to say, you need a veteran presence in the locker room, I think that's a valid argument. I really do. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But at the same time, he has no chemistry with Jordan Love. He's going to have to develop that chemistry with Jordan Love. And every second that he's spending time developing that chemistry with Jordan Love, you're taking chemistry away from Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and on and on. What do you think, Jacob? Do you agree or no?
I completely agree. We had a rookie wide receiver last year in Christian Watson that ranked 24th, I believe, out of all wide receivers. Mm-hmm. You go ahead and you take a guy that's on the absolute back nine of his career, who, again, he was not – maybe he has certain measurables, but he doesn't have the kind of measurables that Christian Watson has. Christian Watson's floor last year is a guy that's, he's 6'4", freaking runs a 4.3, and he has a jump radius. He's got the yak ability. He's got the take it from behind the line, doing the end around stuff sweeps. I don't want to take an aging D-Hop and throw him into our number one because, like Ryan said, if you grab the guy, you have to play him. You immediately have to play him. He is on the field no matter what, every third down, everything. He's on your books and he's on your team. No matter what you're doing, he's on your team. So that means immediately Watson goes to 1 or goes to 2. Dobbs goes to 3 or 4. That means Reed maybe falls out. Maybe Torrey falls out. For what? We give him for 1 year. I mean, we saw what we did with Watkins last year. And again, Hopkins is not Watkins or Watson. What the heck am I trying to say? But it's the same kind of principle where we did the same thing with Cobb last year. Let's take an old guy and then let's just kick a bunch of new guys that maybe are the new Cobbs, the new Hopkins, the new guys that are going to be the up and coming number one receivers in the league. I really do think that Christian Watson can be that. Talked about, I saw, I can't remember who called into PAD. He does have bigger quads now. I'm telling you. I looked at him. Whatever Mama Watson's giving him in those sandwiches, man, keep eating them.
Yes,
it's funny passing those tests.
It's funny because Ryan said, it's kind of strange we're in here talking about another man's legs. But then, and I was thinking, yeah, it is. And then immediately I was like, what does his quads look like?
Exactly. It's the same thing I did.
Anyway, as far as D-Hop's PFF grades, let's start in 2013 and we'll go to the present, okay? Starting in 2013, 68.7, 84.0, 90.4, 77.5, 90.2, 92.4, 87.3, 87.1, 79.8, 72.9. You see the trend there, right? It's gone down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row. He tested positive for a banned substance. He's been battling injuries. I think there's just when you take that into consideration, and again, DJ Key, again, I don't think it would be a horrible idea if they brung him in, but if you're asking my personal opinion, I'm cool with them not signing him. If they did sign D-Hop, we're all going to be like, all right, let's go. We got a solid number one, or two number ones in Christian Watson and him. Again, when you take into consideration the wide receiver market right now, and I think you would have to compare D-Hop, coming off of a banned substance, injury, what have you. And then you seen what happened with OBJ, same thing, coming off an injury. That dude got paid a lot of money. I think that's the kind of money that D-Hop's going to drive, and I just don't want to see that tied up in the cap personally.
Nope.
So, yeah. All right, man. I think we've hit it all. Jacob, is there anything else you want to touch on, man? We're at the hour 20 mark. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us. I know we got a good crowd in here, both on Twitter and YouTube. We really, really appreciate y'all making us a part of your Saturday evening here. Jacob, anything you want to touch on before we wrap up, bro?
No, man, it's just good to talk ball. Excited for the summer, excited for Jordan Love era, excited for – if you guys want to stay tuned, me and the Packernet Fantasy podcast boys are probably going to be cranking maybe at least a podcast every week or two. Just we're going to start doing some mock drafts, some just different things with fantasy football just to keep everybody interested. And it'll be fun. You know that we don't take ourselves too seriously over there. So we just more or less like to crack up and make people laugh. So that's what we do.
Yeah, dude. Love it. Love it. I'm looking forward to that content for sure. And also looking forward to another season of Packers Total Access post-game show with you, Jacob. Man, I had a blast last year. That was a rough year, man, and we made it through, right?
Yeah. If we can get through that year, I think we got a lot of blue skies ahead of us, man.
I do too, man. I think this year's going to be I could see a 6 or a 7 win season. And I'd be like, all right, let's go. Let's take a step in the right direction. I could also see 10 or 11. I really can.
I'm going 10 at least. Yeah. 10's my floor.
10 kind of feels right, doesn't it? So, All right, man. We're going to get out of here. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Like I said, on YouTube and Twitter, appreciate you. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. Hope y'all have an awesome, awesome day. As always, let's go out and be the change that we want to see in the world, and go Pack go.
For Jordan Love.
37. Here he is throwing in the middle. It's caught by Watson. He's got great speed. Turning the corner. Christian Watson down the sideline. And he will score. Whoa. Hang on. Love to Watson. To a one-score game.
This one is the stunner. You basically feel like, all right, this Eagles team sort of has this thing under control, and then Christian Watson hits the Jets again. 6 touchdowns now in the last 3 games. He is really something. When he gets in the open field and running, that was some throw by Jordan Love, too.